Fort Scott TUI, tumble upon impact, 380 ACP versus 32 ACP. So I'm going to do this test out of my little pocket pistols here, my Ruger LCP and 380 auto, and my Kel-Tec P32 and 32 auto. Very, very similar pistols there. So our 380 here, it's a solid copper spun bullet. It's a 95 grain. We're rated at 940 feet per second. Our 32 ACP is a copper spun 71 grain. It is rated at 828 feet per second. Interesting thing here with this 32, kind of looks like that specialty armor piercing ammo from Lethal Weapon 3. Just very interesting looking ammo overall. So stuff like this, normally I would not recommend ammo like this because in normal calibers, 9mm, 38 and above, you typically get a hollow point, and it can get good expansion. It can still penetrate all of that. A lot of times in these little pocket calibers, you sometimes can't get all of that. So you really want to look for something that's going to get adequate penetration, but still do some damage. So sometimes I think specialty ammo like this could be a benefit to little pocket pistols like this. So we'll see how these do in our ballistic test. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So we're going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are, see how they perform, to the best of their abilities with no fabric in a way or anything like that. Then we'll move on to doing more of a real world simulation where I'm going to have 4 layers of sweatshirt material on this first 3-inch piece that represents hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4-inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs. Clear ballistics is roughly a half representation of the density of flesh, so 3 inches and 16 inches equals more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches in a real living target. If we go through the back rib simulation and go a few inches past that, it could indicate the round could pass through. So I do like to try to keep these rounds within that first gel block here without going through the back rib simulation and hit at least 12 inches of penetration. So we'll do our ballistic gel test with those, and then I will shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up we have our 380 ACP 95 grain solid spun copper bullet rated at 940 feet per second. If you guys ever notice, I always have numbers on my chronograph screen before I start doing the testing. That's because I always come out with my Taurus TX22 and fire several rounds over that chronograph after lining everything up in relation to the chronograph to the target to make sure it's reading properly for the day. So let's see what we get here with our 380 ACP Fort Scott TUI. See how close we get to that 940 feet per second. .903, 885, 884, 882, 902. So that's actually really good velocity considering this is a 2 3/4 inch barrel, because it showed that velocity rating was done through a 4-inch barrel. So that's not bad overall for what that is. I don't recall seeing what barrel length they tested the 32 out of, but this is our 71 grain solid copper spun rated at 828 feet per second. Interesting rating. Let's see what we get here with our 32 ACP. .812, 847, 812, 799, 839. So honestly, not bad velocity considering what it's rated at. It's kind of getting about rated velocity through a little pocket pistol, so that's not bad. Let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these compare. All right, first up, we'll do our plain clear ballistics shot. No fabric in the way that could potentially do anything to these bullets. I know it's redundant in a test like this, but I will put it up because sometimes fabric can do little weird things to bullets that are not necessarily open, hollow cavity bullets. I've seen that. So none of that, no rib simulation on the way. Just our plain clear ballistics shot gives the best potential for these things to tumble the way that they were intended to tumble. So let's see what we get here with our 380 ACP. Let's hit that with our 32 ACP. Let's go take a look. All right, so they didn't over-penetrate, I'll give them that. The 32 looks like it's backwards. The 380 is not. That could just be coincidental that the 380 tumbled and then straightened back out. First 3-inch piece here. Not bad. Not as good as a hollow point, but not bad. A little bit more damage than a full metal jacket. I'm not exactly sure at what point these are tumbling. I'm guessing right here with the 32, it's right after going through this first 3-inch piece. With the 380, it's kind of hard to tell. It does look like pretty good damage overall, like it is definitely tumbling, because that has a little more damage than a full metal jacket. What we got going on here with our penetration with our 380 ACP is 16 3/4 inches, so that's not bad. And with our 32 ACP, we have about 13 3/4. So, you know, we got adequate penetration and we did not over penetrate, and that's pretty good. So let's put on our fabric, put in our rib simulation, and see how these do in our real world simulation. All right, our real world simulation, 4 layers of sweatshirt material. That's kind of redundant, but sometimes the fabric does make a difference with non-expanding bullets, followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics to represent hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum. 16 more inches clear ballistics, then another 1/4 inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs, then more clear ballistics. So let's see what we get here with our 380 ACP in our real world simulation. All right. Now let's hit that with our 32 ACP. Let's go take a look. All right, so I kind of thought that was going to happen where, you know, the 32 is going to destabilize a little bit quicker, and I'm kind of seeing that. Let's take a look here at our rib simulation. Yeah, and we can definitely see that those are tumbling through. That 380 makes the perfect shape of that bullet longwise. So that is actually good. And the same thing with our 32. Shape that bullet longwise. That means that after going through this rib simulation, it's immediately sideways. So that's going to kind of, you know, mimic the size of an expanded hollow point just via tumbling, which that's exactly what we want to see. Now the problem with that is a lot of times when rounds tumble, they will significantly under penetrate. And it looks like at least with the 32, we got a little bit of under penetration. Now with our 380, everything looks pretty good. Didn't over penetrate. Not bad overall. And we are looking at about 15 3/4. So honestly pretty good. It does better than a full metal jacket in my opinion, because 380 full metal jackets do a little bit less damage. They tend to over penetrate just a hair a lot of times. So that's very consistent with our 380. Now with our 32, definite tumbling, definitely better than a full metal jacket for damage, but a full metal jacket would actually hit more like, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 inches. This only went to about 11.5. Now, if you look at it from like the FBI protocol and the ISPC, all that stuff, you know, international wound ballistics and all that, they're going to tell you, well, that's not enough. But if you actually think about the application of 32 auto, you know, it's not a duty cartridge. It's up close and personal, like somebody's trying to stab you cartridge. So from a front on shot, that 11 and however many inches, 11.5, 11 3/4 is enough to hit something vital easily. It's just that going through the side on a side shot, things that normal people don't have to deal with, like shooting at people that's shooting at them that are running, side shots are needed. You know, it's not going to be enough in that circumstance, but the application of the 32, you're not usually going to be in that circumstance. So honestly, I think it's fine. I think they're fine overall. So I can't say that this is a lot better than jacketed hollow points that do open up and penetrate far, but usually you don't get both with these two calibers. Usually 380, if it expands, it will underpenetrate. Same with 32. And usually with full metal jacket, it'll penetrate enough, but maybe over penetrate. This kind of splits the difference in my opinion. So it's not bad overall. I think it's not bad. So let's pull these out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at these bullets, and then I'm going to shoot our steel and see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through play and gel, our 380 auto and our 32 ACP. So here's our 380. Interesting looking bullet there. Now our 32 actually has a really heavy roll crimp line there that you could use in a revolver cartridge. That would be kind of interesting to see that bullet loaded as a 32 H&R Magnum. Now we look at the ones going through our real world simulation. There's not going to be any change to them at all. You know, copper is very, very solid. So hitting a rib simulation isn't really going to do anything to them. So 32, 380. They look about the same as they did going through plain gel. So interesting there. Now one thing about these, you know, the length of them is going to cause basically the width of a wound. So look at that, it's not bad. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 25 yards from the target. I really don't want to get any closer than this because solid copper bullets don't deform nearly as well as lead core bullets. So there is a chance that, you know, if there's a ricochet, they're going to travel back at a further distance than typical. And typically they'll fall back within 10 feet if they're lead core, but maybe they won't with these. So I want to stay back a little bit of distance just for safety. So 25 yards. Let's see what I can do here with our 380 ACP. I don't know where that went. All right, so with those, I actually, you see where they're impacting. That first shot I missed, and the second shot I aimed as far left on that target as I could, and then we started seeing all these hits to the right side of the target with me aiming almost off the target to the left. So there's definitely a shift in impact with these for me. So yeah, it could just be, you know, the way they're shaped. The tumbling could actually happen in the air, to be honest. So 32. Let's see if these things shoot any better. All right, so for me, those definitely shot a little bit more point impact. It does look like they're kind of a bigger pattern, but there wasn't anything consistently one way or the other. So honestly, I like the way this ammo shoots out of this little pistol here. So look at this ammo. Interesting ammo overall. I've tested this a lot of times, this type of ammo with larger calibers, and like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing for if you got 38 and above, to be honest here, or even 380 and above if it's in a larger 380 pistol. I think really when you're looking at like 32s and 25s and maybe 380s and these little pocket pistols, at that point I could see the benefit to an ammo like this, because if all you got to work with is hollow points that won't penetrate enough if they expand, and all you got to work with other than that is full metal jackets that will penetrate enough but won't cause hardly any damage, well, the TUI kind of splits the difference there, where you're getting a little more damage than a FMJ. You're getting pretty much similar penetration to an FMJ with some of these rounds. So in those aspects, I would say it's not bad ammo. I would not personally go and load up my 5-inch 9mm with this stuff, because there's so many better options out there. you got plenty of power and barrel length to do anything you want with that. You really don't need to be doing that with 9mm 357 45 auto. These all come in. I think you have better options, but with the small stuff, I think it's a viable option, to be honest, with the small stuff. So interesting overall. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.